So hi, Anthony Hobley, the Green and Tonic Network. I'm here with one of my heroes and mentors, James Cameron. As you can see, not the movie producer, as I said, but in our world of climate and sustainability, no less a superhero, no less a superstar. And actually, as I was discussing with Christiana the other day, this is one of my real issues. I mean, people who are committing their lives have a passion for, let's not, be too grandiose about it, but, addressing a threat to our very civilization, our way of life, are less well known than a YouTuber who plays Minecraft,
for example,
Fortnite, the latest craze. I mean, why is that? I mean, you sort of move in that world. You move with the likes of your namesake, James Cameron, Leonardo DiCaprio.
There's a brilliant thing this morning. I got an invitation from, let's just say from a foundation to make a donation to them. Thinking that I was the other James Cameron, Jim Cameron, and weirdly, because I'd actually know that foundation, have worked with them, my name, it was both Jim and James on the header. So I don't know what you do with that, but if you look up James Cameron on the web, you get pages and pages and pages of him, and you have to work hard to get to me. And there has been some hysterical confusions over the years. At Davos one year, he did a great presentation on his new movie, and I was at a party that night, and Immersion, one of the partners hosting the party, was delighted that I had come to his party because he saw James Cameron on my badge, and I didn't have the heart to tell him it's the wrong James Cameron. So sorry. Anyway. One of these days it'd be great to do a double act, because I know he's very knowledgeable about the environment. He takes the themes and applies them in his movies. They're extremely effective forms of communication, which we need. And I think we might be able to combine quite effectively with his following and my 30 years working on the climate change issue. I think we have to face up to a little bit of self-criticism here. The climate change issue is difficult to communicate. We occasionally use language which is alienating from the population as a whole. We've probably overused fear, and not enough actually we can do this, and the change is going to be for the better in many other ways.
But it is something to be. But it is. I mean, runaway climate change. We've seen the recent hothouse analysis, and the heat. The global heat wave can be frightening.
No, it is real, and it is a legitimate response to be fearful of the scale of the threat. It's also a very difficult threat for people to really comprehend when they're busy with their everyday lives. It feels remote until you can ground it, maybe literally, in the soil or the water or the quality of the air that's causing some other harm, like asthma, which you know all about. It's very difficult to connect the change in a huge system like the climate with an everyday experience that says, that matters to me right now, and I've got to concentrate on it, along with everything else I've got to deal with today in order to survive. I mean, if you're in a what Hans Rosling calls a level 1 country, you're fighting to stay alive every day. There's no mental space for this, even if you were able to if you had the time to absorb the data. But actually we have no such excuse. We have ample evidence, and we've had it for 35 years at least, and I've been doing it for 30 years. It was obvious to me, having had no background in environmental campaigning, this is a young international lawyer, that the evidence was there when I first started to practice. And so we are willfully looking away from the scale of the risk, and that's not smart. However, the risk itself needs to be better understood, because even those, and maybe this is a little bit, I don't want to be fear-mongering, but you've got to really appreciate what this risk is. because it doesn't go in a nice straight line. Warming is a very misleading concept. It feels gentle. It feels gradual. We're not. When that's not what's happening. The problem has been building up over a long period of time. It's in a system that affects every living thing on the planet, but it isn't going to be gradual. Every now and again there will be rapid change. There will be a dislocation. There will be something more chaotic than gradual. It's not a straight line problem.
But also, I think, I was talking to an old friend from school recently, runs a framing business, and I had this conversation that people know about climate change, but it's like, what do we do about it? What can we do about it? And I think, most people are busy with children, schools, the mortgage, worrying about what Brexit means for their lives, and day-to-day stuff. And is there an element of hope in this? I mean, because why are people like us who could have done anything? I mean, you could have been a commercial, a tax barrister, an investment bank, or, I mean, whatever. You've chosen this that may not have been.
It sort of chose me.
Okay.
I mean, as often is the case with people who have, what explains.
But is the path less trodden?
Yeah.
So there must have been hope.
I had an instinct. I mean, initially, I think my instinct was a justice and fairness and representing weak against strong instinct. Right? So I always wanted, as an international lawyer, to be of service to those that were in need, and not necessarily to those that I could have gone to. Yeah. Even in a governmental sense, I could have gone to work for the British government because I had the chance. But I wanted to be independent. I wanted to do something that really did help solve a real world problem, and my idealism was mostly about that fairness and justice issue. But right at the beginning of my career, I happened to get a brief from Greenpeace to advise on climate change and whether you could take the United States of America to the International Court of Justice for failure to act on climate change in 1988. I mean, incredible. And I didn't have any background in it. I just looked at the evidence. And in the sense that having done that work and then having built organisations, which you're familiar with, where we used the law to protect the environment, we built coalitions to deal with the climate change issue, including coalitions of governments in the negotiations.
Well, some of the most vulnerable countries in the world, the small island states.
People who were that's where the justice and the environment themes came together. The basic unfairness of being a victim of a problem not caused by you, your whole way of life, your physical environment under threat from a problem that's very difficult to explain to your average islander in the Pacific or the Indian Ocean. So I really felt that, and we were able to get funding to build an institution to do the work pro bono for all these years. So in a sense, the problem found me, and then I couldn't unlearn it. I couldn't pretend I didn't know about it.
I know.
But here's the thing. It is quite a depressing problem to work with. It can be really hard to keep the spirits up in the face of the mounting evidence and the inertia and inactivity and the various actors who get in the way for their own interests and those who use their power to actually continue the harm. That's hard to deal with. But I am by nature optimistic. I'm a positive person. I do have a very strong sense that this is solvable, and I'm excited, genuinely, no fabrication, no invention. I'm excited about the change that we have to make, because it reveals all sorts of opportunities, technological opportunities, social and community opportunities, ways to do things differently in collaboration with others who have an interest. I actually genuinely think that life gets better having solved this problem, not just because you've solved the problem, but the way in which you build a better life. It can be better. One of the things, just as we really do have to understand that the climate change problem is not linear. It doesn't go in a nice smooth line. It's not gentle. It's going to be hard and disruptive and painful and cause conflict unless we really solve it, properly solve it. Equally, the solutions are not linear. Technology doesn't work that way. Ask anyone who made that, or who is making the
iPhone.
The iPhone. The things that you are watching this on now, if you're watching. It's exponential. Technology works exponentially, and technologies don't work on their own. Big transformations work when they converge.
Lots of different.
When they converge,
and it all seems to, everyone talks about it. They talk about it. It's coming. Then go, and then
it's happening.
It takes off.
It's happening. Momentum is a real thing. It's a bit of a cliche, but it's a cliche in sport, it's a cliche in politics, it's a cliche in business. The reason things are cliches is often they're based on real experience. There's a sort of essential truth about a cliche. Momentum is critical. And what happens when it builds up really momentum is a sort of physical thing too. It draws people in. Entrepreneurs, investors, ultimately also policymakers, politicians, they feel the way things are moving. And they can just as easily switch allegiance. They might have thought that their interest lay in the status quo that produces the value that they thrive on. Right? And I don't mean that in a purely venal individual sense, although it can be that. But one senses that there are at any one time there is a sort of cadre of leadership that knows where, to use your phrase, its bread is buttered, right? It knows who's providing things.
So as well as a technological and economic tipping point, as these new technologies become, scale up and become cheaper. So you're talking about a political tipping point.
That can happen fast too, right? We have examples. We have examples that are often drawn from cultural norms that have shifted rapidly. You look at take a country like Ireland, strong, conservative, small c, Catholic culture for generations that did strongly disapprove of same-sex marriage, and then really very rapidly, quite remarkably quickly, that has changed. The culture has changed, and you can see it in the current leadership of the country. You can see it in the confidence of the youth to express themselves. It's just one of those things that a generation says, no, we have changed this, we now own this cultural change, this is how life is, this is real. Rapid change, and there are examples of that.
So there's a fascinating statement on your website, which, if I can remember, I probably won't get this exactly right, but it's along the lines of governments and policy obviously have a role to play in creating the framework and the legal structure to address these problems, these what we call them externalities, but pollution, things that no one's paying
public
for.
goods,
goods, but enterprise with purpose, business with purpose, allows us to fix things.
That's my thing.
What's the balance between those two?
I like purposive enterprises. I like enterprises that draw on the dynamism of any commercial or financially motivated business. I like enterprise more than business. To me, enterprise includes any social organisation, any mini society that self-organises around a task, work to be done, a problem to be solved. Could be temporary, it could be very brief, it could be an organisation, an enterprise to clear up a neighbourhood. When we're done, we're happy, we're satisfied with that one. Next. It could be something that lasts generations because it's to conserve or protect a watershed in a part of the world. Or it could be an enterprise that is part of its objective is to be commercially successful, to prove that you can be commercially successful delivering a public goods. And as you know, with Climate Change Capital and others I've been involved with, that's often been my.
So that was your idea, which I spent some time at as well. Of this might be counterintuitive to many people. An investment bank, an investment bank whose purpose was to do good, if you like, to make investments
transparently. Really in your face. Look at the net,
but change the world for the better.
Yeah, we had a mantra, if you remember, which I invented and somehow I managed to trademark, called "Creating Wealth Worth Having." And I still like that. It translated well. Apparently it worked really well in Mandarin. The Chinese understood what you meant. Even though we found some humour in it, it was a very serious point.
Well, in this world that we seem to be moving into, the super rich and wealth just expanding like that, do you think that's an incredibly important
I really
concept?
do, because it's not okay to equate, all wealth is not of equivalent value. It depends how it's made. I think it's quite possible to argue that throughout history, really, if you like, outsized wealth is usually exploitative. It usually takes something that it doesn't pay for. I mean, in some very obvious and brutal cases, labour, right? Because it's built on slavery. Right? Yep. Or it's to do with not paying for the data that actually gives you the outsized wealth.
Yeah.
Not ordinary success, but massive, powerful, globally influencing wealth. Usually, somebody's not getting paid for what they have done, either in work or what they have contributed to the enterprise. So I am deeply skeptical of that kind of wealth. And I also want to know, what have you done to earn it? What do you do with it? What's your contribution to the real world with that wealth? And I want to know, so creating wealth worth having, there's nothing wrong with creating wealth. My goodness, I don't have that. One of the reasons why I like purposive enterprise is I believe it helps communicate our power to self-organize, to build our own institutions, to get things done on our own terms. And that appeals to the independent in me. I don't want to be dependent. I don't have perhaps the same level of faith that others on the left would have in the state, and I have a very critical eye cast on very powerful private enterprises. I loved studying, reading, and I occasionally go back to the work of Tom Paine, true radical, played a part in 3 revolutions, was obviously an absolute cuss, a really difficult human being, tragically died pretty much impoverished and unloved, and in America, having played a significant role in the philosophy that created the freedoms that we take, I'm afraid, rather for granted today, constitutional freedoms. And his great opponent was abuse of power. He was particularly concerned with the aristocracy and monarchy and landlords. And he believed in enterprise as a way of controlling their power, or taking power away from the Tory landlord or the monarch, and saying, I'm sorry, I'm not giving you that. I want control over my existence, my day-to-day existence. So enterprise is good for me, and it makes sure that you don't capture too much value in the country and then dominate us as citizens. I still have that view, and I think our capacity to self-organise now is brilliant through our communications technologies, and it can be used for ill as well as good. We now know we have to be careful. We've got to learn more about how this works. We've got to be, conscious of the potential for that system to be misused to our cost. But governments are crucial. If you want to say, what is government for? It's for solving a problem like climate change. In the next breath, you've got to say, it's not capable of doing it without us.
It's about empowering.
It's all about power.
Empowerment.
It's all about power. So, who's got it? How is it directed? How do we make use of the methods that we have? Like, for example, law. How is law created? How does law both constrain and direct behaviour? Well, we have everyday examples of this. We have that law has to be made legitimately, but in its purest form, law is a will to perfection. It's the best of ourselves. It's how we want things to be in order to be the best of ourselves. Right? Knowing our own failings and weaknesses, knowing that we have to have systems.
So, what would you say? I mean, one of the things I've always loved about you, James, is for someone that is so busy, so many different hats, fingers in so many different pies, trying to change the world in so many different ways. You know, in my experience, you've always made time for people who are looking, you know, to move into this area, to do something, to help guide and mentor people. I mean, I still remember getting in touch with you. You probably have forgotten this, but it was 1990. I think,
do remember.
Summer of 1990, or was it 89? Yep. You know, and you just set up
Centre for International Environmental Law,
King's Road.
That's right.
A little room on the King's Road. And I came down
chemistry
to see
labs that we have been given for nothing.
And I think you'd probably forgotten you were going to meet me, and I arrived, and you were about to dash off to a meeting, and you said, "Okay, come with me," you know. And basically, I had this chat, marching at great speed down the King's Road, and then on the tube to your next meeting. But it was one of those conversations that had a huge impact on my career and the path that I chose. And you probably actually weren't that much older than me. I was in my very early 20s at the time. What would you say to I mean, actually, you know, whether someone's 60 looking for their sort of final career and impact in the world, whether they're 50, you know, 40, 30 or 20 or 10.
Well, I do remember that, and I'm delighted. And one of the things that happens if you take an interest in or care for those who come to you for advice or who share a common objective, is that with a little bit of effort you stay connected, and then there are other opportunities in the rest of your lives to work with each other, help each other out, and be supportive of the intent and the desire to do something of real value in the world. And indeed, there are others. In fact, there are these networks build up. Others who do that. I'm thinking also, round about the same time, Martin, our friend and colleague, was the same. You know, he came down and we had that conversation. And a couple of years later, we start working together, and we're still connected. In fact, he's coming through London in a couple of days.
This is Martin, who runs the International Climate Group.
He's an incredibly successful lawyer who's also got involved in sorts of enterprises that fix environment problems. And so, I really do care about that. I value that. I do have mentees now, but I'm also learning. It works both ways. You're constantly learning, and that's vital. You need to. I really do want to remain curious. I want to be open to learn from others, whatever age. And I actually, one thing I'm really sure about is that as I've got older, I realise how little I know, and how much I do need. Sometimes just for a certain quality of energy, how I'm drawn to working with people much younger than me. I find that, attitudinally, I find the folks in that generation, I guess from sort of late teens through to early 30s, I often feel close to their ideals and aspirations and ways of looking at the world, including their desire to self-organise and build institutions, however temporary, to get stuff done. I like that. I find sometimes a stronger attraction or sense of belonging in that tribe than my own generation. I always found it very difficult, as you also know, to work in hierarchical organisations with the assumptions that the guys at the top knew what they were doing. I did want to go home and see my kids. I did want to take them to school. I wasn't much interested in some of the regimens that were offered by professional services organisations.
Yes, I know that as well.
Yeah,
and I think maybe that's one of the big pieces of advice. I'm certainly trying to give my children follow the things you're really passionate about, and I guess live life. Don't sort of enslave yourself to that sort of regimen.
Pay attention every day too. I wanted my kids to be physically aware. Look up. This is where you live. Right? Don't just progress one foot in. Look around. See where. Look. Join in the world. Who's around you? These are all your neighbours, colleagues, citizens. Don't isolate yourself. I think our educational system is very demanding of a certain type of performance. That's important, but don't overemphasize it.
Academic, yes.
Yeah, don't overemphasize it. All sorts of other values that are really, really important, including just simple ability to get on with humans. One of the reasons why I crave a company of entrepreneurs is because they're essentially optimistic, positive people. And again, if you've worked on climate change for 30 years, there's a tendency towards sort of depressive view of the world. Can't get stuff done that way.
No.
It produces. And the other thing that goes with that observation, one of the reasons why I quite like to have a balance between kind of law and policy work and sort of finance and entrepreneurial business building work, is it helps you have an appreciation of the variety of players in a system, because we have a system problem. It helps you hold back some judgment about who to blame, because sometimes blaming can be a real waste of energy.
Yes.
Who are you really going to blame? Is it that person, that company? Probably not. He's probably not a bad person. He may be in a bad situation. It's probably not his fault. It probably about 100 things that need to be fixed. Okay, how do I fix the 100 things? Because that's the real problem. The problem is it doesn't reduce in that way. And so you get a better appreciation of the various forces and interests and players.
Well, people often feel captured by the system.
Yeah,
and it's
I really value an independent mind, but I know that nothing really gets done without the help of others. I like competitiveness in the sense of striving to do better. I don't have a problem with excellence, rather essential if you want to achieve something. But I don't have a problem with failure, because I've had of that. It's another cliche from the world of entrepreneurs, but again, it's based on real lived experience. Things fail. Experiments fail. You learn from them, you try again, you don't give up. Perseverance. I mean, do you remember the wonderful Kenyan campaigner, brilliant woman, Wangari Maathai? She was really good on that. Perseverance. She'd say that once you, she called it a burden actually, once you have the burden of knowledge about the environment, that engages a duty to act. And once you've made that conscious decision to act, you have to persevere, because it's difficult.
So you said it, 30 years. I mean, I haven't quite done it that long, but since I've been focused on environment in the early 90s, late climate, particularly the late 90s. And sometimes there is that tendency to think, we have on one level achieved so much, but nowhere near enough, and we seem to be leaving this to the 11th hour. So, I mean, just to sort of finish on, what gives you hope?
Well, let's break it up into parts. I do believe in our human capacity to create and improve the world, literally through our minds. I mean, we construct the world in our minds. But it's the only reality we have. Everything is made, chemically as well as psychologically, in our heads.
Yeah.
That's where the world is. So you can remake the world, you can reimagine the world, you can connect your ideas with others, you can self-organize, you can build institutions. Critically, you need to build institutions. Many we already have, we can make them better, including, of course, our political institutions. So I have absolutely not at all given up on our capacity to remake, reinvent, reinvigorate, repurpose our institutions, political, financial, the other institutions that make the world work, the international institutions that join us all up, whether it's on transport or travel or trade. So, no backing off there. A lot of work to do. Real competition from people who want to undermine it. The world of Trump and Brexit. Plenty of people who want to undermine it, but I feel we'll beat them. The next level is that I really feel like we have the capacity and you've worked in this area, where both of us have, to tilt the financial system away from climate risk into the alternatives that will get them returns and their beneficiaries, which are us. I feel that happening.
It's the world of carbon tracker.
It's the world of carbon tracker. It's the world of climate change capital as was. It's the world of the CDP and Carbon Disclosure Project and many other enterprises that bit by bit are shifting, they're pushing, they're nudging, they're encouraging, they're cajoling, they're changing the rules, they're working with the Governor of the Bank of England, they're working with regulators. Little by little they're changing, they're reframing what it means to go to work every day and make an investment. In all of the markets, public markets, look what's going on in Sweden right now. The rules are changing, so an institutional investor does something different with the money that they've been entrusted with. And I think that's happening. I'm confident that's going to shift. And the third area, which is my everyday life, for much of it anyway, so many enterprises have solutions in the energy sector, in agriculture. The digitization of pretty much everything is one of those converging fields. It doesn't need a climate label on it. Right? It's not being motivated by that, right? But it's going to come to the aid of the system change we've got to make. We are already winning on renewables. Another generation, I'm sure people watching this, they're going to think, what, you dig stuff out of the ground and burn it? What's wrong with light from the sun, really? We're going to change the energy system, for sure. We're going to do that because renewables and storage, in due course, as the price comes down, but certainly as we build up the capacity of renewables to deliver more and more. But renewables and storage and the digitization, the management of energy by you and I on our phones, this is happening fast.
The energy transition.
It's happening fast. And a point you were making earlier, technology alone doesn't do it. But because technology change is exponential, rapid change recruits supporters who may have been holding back. And that includes politicians, policymakers, investors, everybody who you need to actually change the whole shape of the economy. We've got more work to do on agriculture. My God, I work in that area too.
Well, my wife, land use, forestry.
Exactly, land use, forestry, changing the way we do it.
Yeah.
We've got more work to do on transportation, but it's happening. We've also got, we've got other immediate threats to how our societies work that could be really destructive and destroy some of the capacity that we have to make this transition peacefully and effectively. So I don't turn my face away from those issues. I know all about them. I grew up in the Middle East, for God's sake. I know all about them. But on those three areas, I am confident we'll do it.
James, thank you, and thank you for joining me and having this conversation.
Bless you, yeah.
Thank you to everyone watching for joining the conversation. If you have any questions, reach out, get involved, and we'll connect. Thank you.
Thanks,
James.
Bless you.